All right, what's up, warriors? Welcome back to the battlefield of mind. I'm hanging out with Clint Callahan again, the master
Always
himself.
happy to be back again.
That's
Welcome.
good, man.
Good to see you. The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Cursebreaker. How are things? How are things?
Things are going awesome, bro. It's good to see you again. Now, if I know you, you're ready to go into battle because you're
Yes.
certified in every way a badass. So let's go into some stuff. What is your message today that if you're like, you know what, man, I'm going to change the world today. Today's my day. If I got the microphone for the world,
Yeah.
what are you saying? What's today's message?
Let's see. Today's message has been an interesting one for me because I've been talking with a lot of people, doing a lot of therapy, doing a lot of soul searching while doing a lot of therapy with people today. And really, it always comes back to take it slow. Don't
We're gonna slow
rush
folks
into
down
battle.
today.
Take
Yeah.
it slow. You gotta survey the battlefield. You gotta slow down. You gotta step back. You gotta pick your battles because when you rush in, you get side hit so fast before you know what's going on. You got your bell rung. You're laying on the ground going, "How did that just happen?" And that's really what it is. Today's lesson for me has been staying present and taking it slow. That's what I found. It's been interesting how that's been the theme today, and
I
it's
like it. Give me some
been a
examples
great
for this
theme.
theme. Give me some because
Sure.
I love it already. I'm
Yeah,
with you. People don't have presence when they're present at all. They can't even
that's right.
see any awareness. Tell me what you
Yeah.
got.
So when it comes to taking it slow, it really comes back to you always got to take that step back and ask yourself those two main questions. Is this worth my time? Is this worth my energy? Because time is that one coin. Once you spend that coin, it's gone. You don't get it back. And when it comes to your energy, that fluctuates throughout the day. It fluctuates based on money, many different things. But it's always taking that step back and going, okay, this thing I'm about to charge into, this thing that I think I have to do, because that's the mindset we have, right? I have to do this. If I don't do this, then somehow I am going to fail. Because let's face it, like you and I talked about last time, that biological fear component that we all have tells us survival is the only thing we have to worry about, right? The biological versus the psychological fear and how they work together to make our lives hell. And that's why taking that step back and recognizing that slowing down and asking yourself those questions, is this worth my time? Is this worth my energy? It allows you to then take that breath and go, what is really worth my time and energy? Because how often do you ask yourself that question and have an answer for it? And I know that for me, it always comes back to I had to change my goals and the way I set my goals. And I have two goals that I do every day without fail. My first one is my personal goal. When I'm interacting with anybody personally, is my job, only job, is to stay present with that person in that moment and see where the moment goes. That is my personal. Professionally is if I see a little flicker of a light bulb over somebody's head, to keep working with them to move towards that light. It doesn't mean they see the light bulb. It means I may be the only one that see it. They may not see it. And when you recognize that and you see that and you keep guiding them towards that, you then get them to have that moment where they're like, wait a minute, I don't have to keep feeling this way. I don't have to keep thinking this way. I don't have to keep being this way. I can stop anytime I want to. And the answer is yes. And can I tell you a little secret, Mr. Rick? I read your
Oh,
book.
you read my book? You're
I
the
read
one.
your book.
I was like,
I
somebody
read your
read my
book.
book. I didn't know who it was. It was you. That's
I
awesome,
read your
man.
book. Yep, I got your book. I read your book. I finished it actually last night. Took me
Awesome.
2 weeks. I went through it, and can I tell you, I love
Sure.
it.
Thank
It
you,
was great.
sir.
Your book
Appreciate it.
it had actionable stuff. It had mindful stuff. It had all the things that I was hoping I would see in it from talking to you from before. I'm like, I got to check this guy out. I got to see where he's coming from. I read that book and I'm like, wow, he is absolutely right. Everything is a choice.
It all
From
is.
the time we wake up, the time we go to bed, how we feel, how we think, how we interact, how we react is all about us choosing the moment. And that always comes back to in that moment, what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose to squander your energy? Are you going to choose to squander your time? Or are you going to use that to be the change you want to see?
That's awesome, man. Appreciate you very much. That's cool, man. Thank you for spending the 2 weeks to read my book too. That book was specifically intended to be as indifferent as I could make it, because I took like
Mm-hmm.
100 pages out of it to make sure it
Yeah.
was as objective and not subjective as possible.
It was. I was hoping there was more of your story in there because I was waiting. Like, where's his story? I've seen his. I've looked for his story. I've found his story. I've tried to find his story. Like, where's his story in this? And I'm like, oh, there's a sentence. Oh,
Hmm.
wait, there's a sentence. I'm like, really? Just one or two sentences in the entire chapter? Really? Only
Yeah,
one or two sentences in the next entire
I,
chapter?
I took
I'm
all the
like,
story out. I did it on purpose. I didn't want it to
yeah,
be as much about me, because
yeah,
this is, and maybe this is one of the things. Maybe you can identify with me on this
sure.
one. One of the things I learned when I was young, real young,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
first off, you dropped a bunch of bombs that we're going to get back to, because that was awesome.
Okay.
I've been writing down your bombs. We're going to get back to the time energy thing. But maybe you can see one of the curses that I've had to work on. And I don't know if it's a
Mm-hmm.
curse or if it's a healthy security system. You tell me.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I learned when I was really, really young,
Mm-hmm.
thank you, teenage girls, if you will, is nobody actually really gives a shit about my stuff unless they ask. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
cares. Everybody's got
Yeah.
their own thing. And so I always struggled with the concept of, I got to share my story. I got to share
Mm-hmm.
my story. The reality is whenever I would share my story, people would be like, oh, it's a good story. And then they would go
Yeah.
on with their own things, and nobody really
Mm-hmm.
cared. So I don't share my story unless somebody's like, well, what's your story?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, do you
Yeah.
really want to know? And they're like,
Yeah.
well, I actually do. Then I'll share it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, most people really aren't going to ask. And so they're like, do you just know what you're doing? And how can I
Mm-hmm.
use it for my own story? That's
Mm-hmm.
what I find most people are really on.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this?
It's been interesting because as I've been launching this my project and my 1% per day transformational system, I've been on podcasts and I've been telling my story again and again to the way where my story started to lose a bit of meaning for me, which I'm like, that's kind of weird. I never expected that because this is my life. How can my life and my story start to lose meaning for me? And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, it's because I'm kind of giving it away a little too freely. But that's why I changed the way I tell my story. I now tell my story and weave in the lessons with the story instead of make the story and the lessons separate. Because by weaving it together, I'm like, this is where I was, this is how I got out. This is the next place I went to, this is how I got out. Because by doing that, it allowed me to now remind myself, this is why I'm telling my story. Because I don't want anybody to feel alone. I don't want anybody to think I'm just doing this because I want people to know me because I don't care if people know me. All I want is people to get better. I mean, okay, that's not totally true. I wouldn't mind if some people did know me. But it's that kind of thing, right? Where as you go through this process of getting out into the public space, which is completely new to me because like I've spent 23 years and 47 years being anonymous, just doing my job, helping people, doing therapy and doing all these things. And it wasn't until this last 4 month period that I branched out into this life coaching and getting into this space. And it's a totally different way of looking at things.
Mhm.
But it also allows me to say, you're not alone. You know how I know you're not alone? This is what I've been through. Listen to where I have been and how I've come out of the darkness. You too can do that. Let me help you. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I have some answers, but I don't have all the answers. And that's what I keep going back to. And that's why I like to weave the story together because it allows people to see parts of themselves in it. That's why we are a story based culture, right? That's where we come from, is our history for the first 5,000 years, before 5,000 years was all oral. Before it was, they even created writing, it was all story. This is how and the why of all the stuff was the story. And we still, that's what our programming is here. It's all the story.
It's funny. I've gotten to the part where I'm with you, where the only time I actually share parts of what my experience is when it
Mm-hmm.
pertains to a relatability of what someone's
Mm-hmm.
going through. Otherwise, I don't really enjoy, or nor do I really get into telling my story. And that's
Yeah.
why you saw like the part where I hit rock bottom, which is got to be a little
Mm-hmm.
bit further on, when like I punched a car window out and I
Yeah.
realized like in this moment I'm trained to be an abusive, borderline
Mm-hmm.
sociopathic person. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not the kind of guy I want to be. and in those rock bottom moments when you realize that you're trained to be abusive and you're not trained to be a solid man, I'm like, in this moment, I choose to be different from now on. And
Exactly.
so I could share this story, but how many times do I want to tell people, like, hey, do you even care? Like,
Yeah.
most don't. Like,
No.
unless somebody asks, they don't care. But when I go, like, listen, man, I know you're hitting rock bottom. I know you're going through it. Let me tell you how it relates so you can see I'm not talking on my ass. And they go,
Yeah.
oh, you've hit it too. I'm like, yes, this was mine.
Mm-hmm.
I can see how yours and mine correlate to where now it's time to change. Now we see our path doesn't work.
Exactly.
And they goes, oh, I get it. But if I go through all my experiences from my story, I'm with you. It loses its luster. I won't have it.
Yeah.
I won't have
It's one of
that
the most
connection anymore.
interesting. It's an interesting thing, right? Because I like listening to Dak Shepard's story on Armchair Expert because he talks about his addiction stuff, and one of the things that he's talked about frequently a couple times, which because of his addiction, he had this episode where it was the seventh day. It's where he relapsed, and he professed it to his listeners that he relapsed, and he was so fearful that that relapse was going to cause him to lose everything that he'd built to that point, that he was scared to do it, but he knew that he had to do it. And it was those, but then since then, and that's been a bunch of episodes ago, he said, I don't want, when people come up and tell me that that episode changed their life and made them feel better and all these things, he's like, I don't know how to feel about that,
Mm-hmm.
because that was just me living my life and trying to get my life back on track and trying to own my truth. And for them to be grateful and give me kind of a little bit of an ego boost about it makes me feel weird, because it's like I don't want it to lose meaning for me, because I know the way my brain works, right? If
Yes.
I get too much ego in this thing, then I will backslide back to who I was and the reason why I had to tell that story in the first place.
Well
That's the
said.
stuff that I love.
People are starving for authenticity right now. There's too many
Yes, they are.
characters, and like
Mm-hmm.
this is probably a reason why like we've got the success. Like just so we know, like record 842023. Like this is the day to day.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're about to for the first time break 300,000
Mm-hmm.
followers like on our thing. It's the first time we've ever hit that number. Like this is where like in 2 years from now when it's like 5 million, we're like, oh yeah, remember we're at 300K.
Hey, you remember
Like
that? Yeah.
remember that day? Like, but this is a big deal for us
Yeah.
milestone wise. One thing Andrea gives me credit is I have not changed one bit from any of this. Where this is
Yeah.
like I've got a panel coming up with like a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of different speakers, and I think I'm the
Yeah.
biggest one in the entire panel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I
Okay.
I don't
It's
care
like,
about
okay,
that.
thanks. Right? It's like, okay,
But
thanks.
it's because when they see what I do here, when people are hanging
Yeah.
out with me outside of here, the way I am at dinner with friends, the
Mm-hmm.
way that I am on the shows with you, and the way I
Yeah.
am when we do our videos, it's the same dude every time. It's
Yeah.
I don't play a character. This is really what
Yeah.
I talk like. I really am like this. I say fucking shit and ass. I say stuff all the time. I'm really that guy.
Yeah.
But I also will go into hell for anybody, and I've gone into hell over and
Mm-hmm.
over again where guys like that guy will have your back for real.
Yeah.
And like those things are there too. But like you said, well, you told me about you going into hell, Clint, and you had to go and
Mm-hmm.
fight this thing. It's like, man, I
Yeah.
thought I was going to really look bad. I thought people would think I would look
Mm-hmm.
bad. It's like, no, they're
Yeah.
starving for authenticity. They're
Yeah.
starving for you to be real.
And that's the piece, right? Is for me, it's taken me, took me 38 years to understand that. Took
Mm-hmm.
me 38 years to break out of the imposter syndrome, to break out of the people pleasing, to break out of the anxiety, the depression, the fear that if people really saw me, they would basically be like, whatever, I don't care. You're full of crap, whatever. Because that's the fear, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
they're going to look at me and say, you're putting on an act. You can't be that genuine. You can't be that friendly. You can't be
Oh,
that open.
I got a
Why
real one
would
for
you
you.
be that open? And I'm like, well, because I've been closed for so long that being open is the biggest breath of fresh air that I've ever had. And I never want to go back to being closed like that again. I mean, I like to tell people I'm open minded as far enough as I can be so my brains don't fall out of my head. That's the way I look at it, because I'm me, just like you. I don't change who I am. I'm the same person that you met last time. I'm not going to change because it took me a long time to love this guy. It took me a
Yeah.
long time to finally go, I am worthy of love, of respect, of all of the things that I want for my life. And guess what? If other people don't want to be around me, that's not my job to make them want to be around me. My
Yeah.
job is to be the most me I can. And if we connect up and we connect together and we get along, great. If we don't, I wish you well. I wish you the best of luck. I wish nothing but good things for you. I'm out.
Yeah. I love it, man. Way to go, too. Big milestone to be able to love yourself. A lot of people really struggle, man. They struggle with even
Yeah.
liking, let alone loving. Like, it's a tough
Yeah.
deal. I got a hard question for you. You ready?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Let's say you were to get, some notoriety, fame, like you
Mm-hmm.
blew up, like everyone knows Clint Callahan. Clint
Yep.
Callahan, he's going to be on Oprah. He's going to be on the New
Yep.
York Times. He's going to be on People Magazine. He's the man. He's the myth. He's
Yep.
the best.
Yep.
What do you want to be known or famous to do or for?
That I will help anybody with anything as long as you want to work for it.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, like, you don't have to be famous for that. Let's say you're getting famous.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what
That's
are you going to
still
do?
what I want to be known for.
Like,
I don't
just
want to be
help,
famous.
just helping people. Don't want to be famous.
I don't want to be famous. I just want to help people. I just want people to not go through the hell that I've been through. I just don't want people to have to suffer any longer than they have to. That is the me. That is the core of me, and has always been the core of me. And that's
Yeah.
who I am. And fame doesn't hold any kind of intoxication for me. If anything, it sounds like a giant pain in the ass. It's like when
Yeah.
people ask me, what would you rather be, rich or famous? And I'm like, I would rather be rich on an island somewhere where I can give to people and do stuff and be anonymous and do these things. Because fame puts the spotlight on you. And that's when you begin to change, because maybe this wonderful little squishy blob up here starts to believe its own hype. And then you begin to change. That's why being 100% grounded in who you are and what you're about is the only way to keep fame from changing you, to keep that from making you a parody of what you wanted to be.
Interesting. That's a cool answer. I think I went the other way with it, but
Right.
not for the reason that I thought at first. This was years ago, before I ever had any notoriety or did any of the entertainment stuff that I do here, like none of this. I wrote down that I actually did want to have fame, but not for selfish reasons. The reason that I wanted fame is because then I don't have to explain who I am in order to help.
You
And what
know
I've
the
noticed,
platform.
because I'm known, when people jump on, they're like, I've seen what you do. I know what you are. Even like you said, read your book. I know your stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have to go like, hi, I'm Rick. Here's what I do. Here's where my background is. This is where I come from. And then they'll go, oh, well, let me ask a couple questions to challenge if you're competent. All right, now that we've taken a half hour just to go, who are you? And now I can ask you questions. People just go like, hey, I know your stuff. I love your stuff. Here's my question. Can you help? And I'll go, good. We can skip the bullshit. Now
All right,
we
then.
can get
I'm
right to
stealing
business.
your answer. I like it.
You like-
I'm stealing your answer.
I want to be famous so I don't have to explain who I am. So that way we can just get to work.
I like it.
Like Tony Robbins. You don't have to go, okay, Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
are you even good at this? What do you even do, man? You just know, Tony Robbins. Let me ask a question. I'm going to go right in.
Exactly.
So that's what I found. Like, why did I want to be famous? Not because it's about me, but because I can skip having to explain me so we can get to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like why do you wear your brand like on your shirt? Why are you creating a brand? Why are you creating a brand for yourself, right? You're creating a brand because when I say McDonald's, Walmart, Microsoft, Google, when I say these things, the image pops in your head and you know what each one of those things is automatically about. There's no question, there's no deception, there's no wondering, there's no thinking. It's just, this is what it is. And it's that process, right? And you're right. I think you're right. I think your idea of what you want for fame to be this thing that precedes you, that then lets you do the real work, that is amazing. That makes perfect sense. I've never thought about it like that. So thank you, sir. Thank you for changing my mind.
Hey, you're welcome. Yeah, I had to write that one because at first I was like, "Oh man, am I really like a selfish dick? Like, I don't know what is it." But then when I got into it, even with the fame that we have now, like we have a few million views in the last couple of days, and so like You know, Andrea, she loves this stuff. So she's like, look at this. This is blowing up and we're viral
Yeah.
again and these things. And I'm like, that's good, babe. What do you want to do tonight for dinner?
Yeah.
Like we'll get to that
Thanks.
because it's
Yeah.
cool, but it makes it so that we can help more people. And so I
Mm-hmm.
just like the part when people jump on, they go, hell yeah, I'm talking to you. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm talking to you.
Yep.
Let's get into it, and we can
That's
just
right.
go right to battle instead of like, who are you?
Yeah.
So that was my answer. That's what I found. So I appreciate that you're
Cool.
like, yeah, okay, hell yeah, I see that.
Yeah. I
It's
see
not an
that. No, I
ego.
love
It's
it.
just let that proceed so we don't have to have the
Yeah.
bullshit conversations.
Yeah.
So I like this. Let's slow down. Let's slow down here.
Sure.
You said we got to slow down. Where are we spending our time and our energy? Is it worth the time, energy, presence, and the presence? And I liked how you said to challenge it. All right, so people are slowing down. There's a lot of reasons they're
Mm-hmm.
doing it. One thing I want to put out there, I noticed that the reason that people need people like you and
Mm-hmm.
like me is so that we
Mm-hmm.
can reveal to themselves that they're already able to do what we do. Do you agree or disagree?
100% agree.
Right on. So what I noticed is people are great at asking questions, but then they believe the questions themselves are rhetorical and never spend the
Mm-hmm.
time answering them.
Exactly.
Like, oh, what's the fucking point of all this? Well,
Yeah.
it's actually a really good question. What is the point?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do here?
Yeah.
Well, I
Why
didn't
do
think
you
of
do
it
what you
that
do?
way. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
why is my husband or wife being so annoying, or why do they do this bullshit? It's actually a
Mm-hmm.
really good question. Why are they doing that? Have you ever asked them to see
Yeah.
like what's going on?
Yeah.
Like people are their own best therapists, but they ask the questions rhetorically instead of actually like taking them serious enough to answer them.
And that's the thing that I always laugh about, right? Because when I think about being a therapist, I'm like, I can't believe being a therapist and being a life coach is my job. Because I look at it and I'm like, I'm a professional secret keeper and advice giver for a living. And that's the thing that I laugh about is that it's like, really? I'm sitting in this room with you. I sit in a room all day and I talk to people online or in person. And I basically go, okay, so you just told me this stuff. What do you think about the stuff you just told me? And they're
Yeah,
like, well, this is what I think about the stuff you just told me. Oh, so this is what you think about the stuff you just told me? Yeah, well, where would you like to see that go? Well, I'd like to see it go here. Well, that sounds great. You should do that.
yeah, good,
Okay, I'll
good.
do that. Wow,
Yeah,
you're amazing. I can't believe you just did that for me. And I'm like, yeah, I am. Oh, look at me go.
yeah. That was all me.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. But the thing is, you need the third party, dispassionate perspective to
mm,
let you go, oh, it's okay to take the step back. It's okay to analyze. It's okay to recognize that I don't know everything in this moment, and that's okay because so much of life is everybody around you telling you you should know. Why don't you know? We have all the knowledge we could ever want in these little devices in our pocket. We have all the skills we could ever need in these devices in our pocket if we wanted to use them for that. We have all the knowledge of humanity literally at our fingertips,
and yet
but
we struggle
there's too
more than
much.
ever. Yeah.
It's too much. It's too much knowledge. It's too much information. No knowledge, no wisdom.
Yeah, I have a podcast I just did. Somebody I just did a recording with you would love. There's a couple people that you'll have to meet too in the network of people. There was one that actually changed my like messed me up. She got me good.
I
And
love
it
it.
was Maria Kellis. Like that
Okay.
was a conversation. It's coming out in I think like in a week or so. But she rocked me, bro. Like she came out with this whole connection to the universe thing where like how much information there is, but then where our place is in the universe for it. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, we are just like we're the in essence kids with buckets at the edge of the ocean. There's an
Yeah.
ocean of information that exists, but our bucket can only handle so much information. We're
Mm-hmm.
we're very limited in our design for like our mind and our heart, how much we can
Mm-hmm.
handle before we overload. And so, how much is there? Well, if you look at the ocean, you can see it's an endless amount, but you can't even see all of it.
Yep.
And it's like try to explain that to somebody who's only ever known the amount of water of bathtub or pool.
Yep.
They can't understand. We can't grasp it. We have small buckets. That's what we are. And
I mean,
so, even though,
we only live for 100 years, right? So for us, the cosmological scale of billions of 13.6 billion years is unfathomable. The
Valid.
cosmological scale of the geological scale of the Earth of 4.6 billion years is unfathomable.
Yeah.
Living 1,000 years is unfathomable for us. Living 500 years is unfathomable. The fact that 200 years ago was the Wild West for
Hmm.
most of us is unfathomable because
That's
all we
true.
know is the now that we're in, right?
That's a good point too. Listen, maybe this is me going in the weeds. You can stop me if you need to.
Okay.
I get frustrated when we watch these movies of people who have
Mm-hmm.
lived like 500, 1,000, 2,000
Yep.
years, but they still act the same as when they were 35.
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, in the last 12 years, even if I
Yep.
went from 29 to 41, not even close to the same human. Not even
Yep.
like my 30-year-old to even 40. It's not the same guy at all. Like I almost completely disagree with everything my 30-year-old self did. And so let's go ahead and multiply that by 10 and make me 400. Would I still act the same as now and have the same temper tantrums? I
You
don't
would
think
hope
so.
not. You
Well,
would really
that's why I
hope
always
not.
get frustrated. These characters are like, so you're the same, huh? Didn't
Yeah.
learn or grow at all in 1,000 years. And don't get me started with these vampire movies where they love some teenage girl, because that's weird. Listen, I'm gonna throw it out there, and we can giggle with this one. All right, Twilight was real big, and it's this dude who's like over 120 years old or 112 years old or
Yep.
something, who's like, I love this 17-year-old girl. Let me just tell you something right now, okay? I
Yep.
have a 17-year-old girl. We have a 17-year-old daughter, just turned 17.
Yep.
At 41, I have as much in common with her as like maybe my dogs do to cats. Like it's not a
Yep.
lot going on here. We don't understand each other very well at all.
Yep.
And even still, if I were to say I am 41 dating a 17-year-old, you're like, that's not
Oh.
good.
Yeah.
That's weird. Well, let's go ahead and triple my age and see how
Yep.
much we have in common.
Yeah. No.
No, triple my age. Even
Yeah.
make me, let's double it. I'm
Yeah.
80 years
Yeah.
old dating a 17-year-old. Well,
Yeah.
that's even weirder. Make me 120, and we have a
Mm-hmm.
lot in common. I'm like,
No.
come on now. No, we would not.
Yeah, I mean that's and that's the whole premise of the book, right? Is that he's been perpetually in high school for his entire life, and I'm like, really, I couldn't imagine a worse hell than that. Stuck in high school for the rest of your immortal life, really? No thanks. I think that was really the message: is
Yeah,
high school sucks.
right, right. What is purgatory? It's high
That's right.
school forever. And you can't even drink their blood.
That's right.
That's funny. Yeah,
I
that's
like that. That was some fun reads. I enjoyed it.
yeah, well, the whole concept itself is hilarious, especially when it comes to people's passions. But I'm going to keep it on topic with you because we don't have a lot of time
Sure.
today. Slow it down. Slow
Mm-hmm.
down. Now, let's go ahead and give another piece. Not only do we have to slow down for time and energy, but we have to not be the center of the universe, which means
Okay.
we are pack animals. We are a herd animal. We're a social creature. And yet we think that we can just slow down and know all the answers, as though we
Mm-hmm.
can really conceive the concept of time or the concept of, let's be realistic, energy itself is
Yep.
already humongous, even when it comes to feelings and it comes to spirit side. It's deep.
Mm-hmm.
You know what our answer is? Actually, I don't always do this, but I reference Bible on this one. I'm going to Proverbs. I'm going to hang out with Solomon, and the memes of Solomon is what I call it.
All right.
So this is NLT. I know there's different versions of this, but Proverbs 24, 5 and 6. This is a warrior's way part. We took this one in. The wise are mightier than the strong, and those with knowledge grow stronger and stronger. So don't go to war without wise guidance. Your victory depends on having many advisors. The
Mm-hmm.
reason I bring that up is don't think just because you slowed down that you know everything. Lean in on your support, lean in on your group, lean in on your teams, lean up on your brothers and sisters, and go, hey, listen, I'm about to go into battle with some stuff here. Could be
Mm-hmm.
here, could be out there. Lean in. Hey, Clint, what do you think? Hey, Rick, what do you think? Hey,
Mm-hmm.
listen, team, group, support. What do you think? Quit thinking that you know everything, because there's a quote that I threw out. I'm writing on Truth right now, which I'm not going to go into because I can go in on forever on what is
I
truth.
know you can.
So one of my quotes, there's a lot of quotes I love. Marcus Aurelius. Love
Oh
Marcus
yes,
Aurelius. I love Marcus Aurelius.
stoicism. Gotta love
Yep.
stoicism.
Stoic, king of Rome, philosopher king. One of the things I love that he wrote is that everything that we hear is an opinion, not a fact. And
Hmm.
everything that we see is a perspective, not truth. And
Exactly.
this means there's no such thing as truth other than the agreement that we make. And yet people will argue right and wrong when we're all looking at the same thing. And it's totally freaking different.
Yep.
Like we all have a different answer for what that is. We're all looking at the same thing in a different way.
Yep.
Actually, it reminds me. I just talked about this just recently. You know the thing where they show like the 6 and the 9, like,
Yes.
but
Yes.
then
I love
also
that one.
like is that a 6 and 9 or is that a
Yeah.
B or is that a
Yeah.
music note? Like what is that?
It's
And
all
the
the
answer,
above. It's all
yeah,
the
the
above.
the answer is yes, but the answer is
Yes.
also no.
Exactly.
It means everybody's right and everyone's wrong.
Hmm.
Just depends on who's saying it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? And that's one of the things that I find fascinating is because when I was trained to be a therapist, it was trained in the classical way of being a therapist, which is where I'm the expert, you're not the expert. So let me be the expert to train you and show you the way out. And the more that I started doing this as a profession, the more I'm like, I don't have all the answers. I'm not going to tell everybody I have all the answers. And anybody that thinks they have all the answers is trying to sell me something that I really don't want to buy.
It's bad
So that's why
therapist.
I tell everybody I don't have all the answers. I
Mm-hmm.
have some answers. And some of my answers will work for you. Some of my answers may piss you off. And some of my answers you may not care about one way or the other. But I have some answers that have worked for me. And that's
Which
all I can provide you is what I know. Because
the perspective you
I don't
found.
have all the I don't have all the knowledge in the world. And even if I did, I don't want my brain to be like this big.
That would be a good look. Your hats would be cool. Well, it's funny too, and this is where like you said, like your secret keeper and like what was the other one?
Advice giver.
Advice giver, secret keeper, advice giver. I was thinking about when you were saying like, what is my title on that? Because like while I do curse breaking, the curse breaking is usually you have to identify.
Mm-hmm.
And then I give you choices once we get to the belief systems that contradict themselves. This is the
Mm-hmm.
belief system your mom or dad has put in there. And this is your authentic belief system. They both can't be in there because conflicting beliefs, but now you have to choose which one stays and goes. The
Yeah.
world goes on either way. But which one do you decide is authentic for you? Yours or the one that's been ruining your life? Please choose.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's fine either way except for you.
Yeah. And
You know,
that's the biggest piece that
choices.
people recognize, right? Is as you continue to move through your process of healing, you begin to recognize that these things that you once clung so tight to. The easiest way to describe this is when I was when I was just at the end of college and starting graduate school, I was studying with a Buddhist teacher, and I was meditating with him one day, and he had me hold an egg, and I was sitting there holding the egg, and he said, "You have one job: protect the egg." I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm just sitting there doing my meditation thing. He snuck up behind me and scared the crap out of me.
Mm,
It was not a hard boiled egg.
mm.
So the shell, all the goopy stuff, all down my arm, all over the stuff. And he said, I thought I told you to protect the egg. Isn't that what I told you to do? And I was like, well, you came up behind me. He's like, no, I told you to protect the egg. That was your only thing to do. Meditate on that. Go wash your hand, come back, meditate on that. So I basically sat with that for weeks, going, okay, what is he talking about? And then in one of my psychology classes, they talked about how how we were talking about Munchausen by proxy, which is where you get pleasure from inflicting pain on a family member because you get notoriety, but
Mm-hmm.
yet it's usually parent to child, where it's this thing that you're supposed to love more than life itself, but because of your overwhelming desire, you do this and you smother them and crush them to get seen somehow because you're not feeling seen. And I was like, oh, that's what he meant by protecting the egg. The things that we love and hold dear the most, we grip the most tight. But the
Mm.
problem is, this is a fist, and this crushes everything inside of it. So that's why having an open hand is the only way to let go and to be present for everybody. And when I got that, it was like my mind just went blew my mind because it was like, wow, that makes so much sense of why people can get so stuck on ideas and ideologies and theologies and these things because it becomes this precious thing to them. It becomes like Gollum and the One Ring, where you'll do anything for it. But yet, when you get that step back and you get that breath and you get that perspective, you realize that it's both a 6, a 9, a musical note. It is and it isn't, and there is no truth at all. Truth is all lowercase. There is no capital T. And anybody that tells you any different is trying to get you to convert to their way of thinking.
Correct. That's an excellent example. And I love how extra strong you are in that example too. And like, yeah, I'm with you. It kind of scrambled my brains on that one. I was waiting to I'm like holding back all my dad jokes.
That was excellent. Thank you.
Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and exit this conversation now.
All right.
No, but it's a good call, and interesting to say, like, I'm going to scare you, and like the different ways that we would handle that. Cause like you said, your first instinct was to grip and like squeeze, right?
Yeah.
And like, it makes you wonder if like different personality types or warrior types or different like people like would be like it would covet, or if it would be like keep away, or if it would be a squeeze jump reaction, because I'm not usually the jump squeeze type, but it would be a different system that I would use because I'm not usually that jumpy. But I also know that I also wouldn't attack with the egg because I have to protect the egg. So I'd be curious to see what my reaction to that is, because I'm also not a very jumpy person either.
Well,
even if you
it's
came
very
up on
easy to test it. Just go sit somewhere and have an egg in your hand and have someone come up and scare the crap out of you and see what you do.
Deal.
Please videotape it. I'd like to see this.
Yeah, sounds.
If you need me to come and scare the crap out of you, let me know.
It sounds extremely fun. Yeah, no, I'll give it a shot. Like, I don't like. I mean, I think it'd be tough now because now I know it would be coming, so it'd be trickier. Because like I'm gonna be doing this, but I know someone's gonna scare me. Yeah. But I also know I don't have any ninjas around here or attackers, so the likelihood of like being hit with like a baseball bat or something is low too.
That's true.
But no, it's a neat example. But I like the way you got into that, how like even with people who, this is what I found too, like the people who, because of their generational curses, and you talked about the Munchausen by proxy and like the things where people will, carry on the thing that their wounds go on to the people they're supposed to love the most. And it really just exemplifies their pain. Even though their intention may not be to cause the damage that they are going to do to try to find the pleasure in what it is that they think that they need, which they don't, but they think they do. It's funny, even the best parents and the people with the best intentions still create vicious generational curses.
Yeah.
And that's what we end up doing. Here's hope for people too. Here's good news, parents. No matter what you do, you're going to screw up your kid. No matter what, because I've had people who had a perfect life, wanted everything. Everything has gone exactly like the best way possible. And even still, they sabotage it because they don't feel like they're worthy of having all of the wins that they got. You can't. They're fucked up anyways. No matter what we do, we all have a battle in our mind that we have to defeat. So don't get so caught up on doing it perfect, because even if you do, they're going to be addicts. So you're going to lose no matter what. Let's 100%. Let our kids get screwed up appropriately. Yeah. Just make sure it's not like some existential damage. Just make sure it's like, okay, well, you had a breakup. That's cool. Like, we're going to go through that. Or, oh, your friend betrayed you. It happens, and we're going to work through that. Or, okay, well, I said some bullshit. That's true. Yeah. I'm working on stuff, too.
And it's going to happen.
I'm going to say, you never know either.
And you love that stuff, because the things that I love most about having my boys is that they forced me to look at things in a way that I never would have looked at them, because they call me on my stuff every single time. They don't let me get away with everything. They put it right in my face and say, Dad, why did you do that? You taught us not to do that. Why did you do that? Hypocrite. Ooh. And I'm like,
they go with a judgment, like hypocrite. Damn.
Oh, they're good. Well, they have 2 therapists for parents, so they know all the big words. So my kids are going to be extra screwed up. Oh, no, that's not right.
Oh yeah, that's true. They're going to be psychoanalyzing every relationship.
That's right.
That's called recipe for breakup. I think we're having
problems in this relationship right now because of my inner child issues that are going on. Yeah. So let's go have a conversation.
Sweetheart, I couldn't help but notice that you're holding on to this past trauma that may have happened and occurred from. You're like, I need you to stop it. I'm just in a bad mood. You're like,
Yeah,
right, but
pretty
let's go
much.
to the core of where that came from.
Nope,
Like,
nope, nope,
stop
nope,
it,
nope,
stop it,
nope,
leave me alone.
nope. You're my wife, not my therapist. I'm your husband, not your therapist.
So
No,
funny.
no. But
That
that's the
does
piece, right? Is
that
as you
also
go
doesn't
through
work.
these things and you recognize that stuff. And the thing about having kids is if you allow them to, they will change you in profound ways.
Hmm.
If you allow them to be themselves and express themselves and do what you can to support them while also allowing them to fail, which in
Hmm.
today's culture is one of the hardest things for parents to do, is to let their kids fail. Because I would rather have my kids fail 100 times when they're in my home than fail one time outside of my home. Because in my home, I am the safety net. I can provide the wisdom and the guidance through it. But outside of the home, I don't know who's going to be around there to give them the first piece of advice of how to get through it. And that's the
Well,
piece that for
even
me is
even that
the
can
most
create
important
its
thing.
own setup though. Even that, because like
Yeah.
then they rely solely on you for that safety net. So when there is
Mm-hmm.
no net and they splat, now they're like,
True.
Dad, what the hell just happened? So
Yeah.
sometimes in the house, you gotta let them splat.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
I
That
don't
is
like
exactly correct.
because life is gonna splat them. And so
Yes.
like if they're always used to a safety net, and then they're like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, wait a second, where's the net? And they're like, there
Yeah.
ain't no net in real life. What are you talking
Yeah.
about? So like even when I
Maybe
got three
safety net was
teenage
the wrong
girls.
word because that's not what I do for my kids. Because I let them splat continuously and they get pissed off at me for it. So maybe
Yeah,
not safety net. Maybe it's just a safe place to fall that they
yeah.
know, or a
At least
safe person to come to when something goes wrong. Maybe it's
uh,
that.
that feels better. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough. I got three teenage girls, and like, man, do they just love touching the stove? I'm like, it's gonna burn you again, right? And they're like, you don't
Yep.
know. I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm here with the med kit again.
You see all these burn marks on my fingers? I do know.
Oh my gosh, the oldest one, and they're just all over her, and
Yep.
the middle one's like, I actually understand relationships better, and like I'm like, it's funny, dude. You could probably relate with me on this one. I have so far, when it comes to calling human behavior for the people we meet, the new boys
Yep.
that they bring around, all these like
Hmm.
friends and whatever stuff. I have 100% success rate on calling behavior.
Oh yeah.
Like I haven't been wrong yet. I'm like, well, most likely they're going to do this, and this is that kind of person, and you're probably
Hmm.
going to see something like this come up with that type of person, and it's
Yep.
exactly what happens. And even still, they're like, well, I don't think you're going to be right. I'm like, I've
Okay.
been 100% correct so far,
Yeah.
but
Hey, there's a
the
first time for everything.
odds are you're probably right this time.
Yeah.
You,
But
that's
there's a
why I
first time for everything, man. That's how it works, right?
sure
Because that's what our kids' job is. Our kids' job is to push it until they get to the thing where you're wrong. Because
correct.
that's what they want. Because there's nothing my kids love more than proving me wrong. They think it's the best thing ever. When I'm like, oh really? You think this is what's going to happen? Here's what's going to happen. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, okay, go ahead and do the thing. Go ahead. See what happens next. Go ahead. Oh, did the thing happen? Well, not exactly the way you said. Well, how close? Okay, like 90%. So I still got an A? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, there you go. But
yeah,
that's the thing. I can't predict the future, but I know enough about human behavior that I know how people will operate in certain situations. That's
yeah.
all. Right?
It's tough when you watch your kids driving for like step on the gas for the brick wall, and you're like,
Oof.
and you're right. As a
Oof.
parent, it is still the hardest thing now. When I'm like I have the talk with the daughters now, and I'm like, all right, hun, most likely the thing that keeps happening is going to happen again. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta let you do this, and they're like, "Yep, I gotta be able to do it on my own." I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
Just know that I'm gonna love you right when this one hits, okay? Like this
Yep.
one's gonna suck, and I gotta let you go through this one, so go
Yeah.
for it. But just know
Yeah.
that
I
I'm here.
mean,
I
like,
got your back.
yeah, I mean, 2 weeks ago, my oldest was trying out for soccer at high school, and he was playing, and he juked the ball from a guy, dropped in front of him, and this was a senior, stepped on his arm, snapped it right here in half, both
Eek.
bones completely snapped, and it was just so nothing you love more than getting a call from the coach saying, yeah, you need to come pick up your son, and he needs to go to the ER because his arm is hanging funny, and you're just like,
That's
oh no. So we took him to the ER, did all this stuff. He was didn't cry, but I didn't know he could swear the way he swore. He has a whole bunch of really good
Yeah,
combination of words I never heard before.
he's
And
in
I'm
high
pretty good.
school and has a cell phone. He knows all these
Oh yeah.
words.
Oh yeah. So he did. He just but that happened, and it's like, So then it's like, how? Then you got to help him cope with. Okay, you broke your arm. You did it in front of your future classmates. It wasn't your fault. But at the same time, what are you going to do next? Are you going to let
Get,
this derail all
get
the
that
plans? Or
sucker.
are you going to
Get that
let this?
sucker signed, man. You get it signed
Yeah.
by everybody.
Yeah, that's right. Let him see war wound, right?
Yeah.
War wound. And it's that kind of stuff. Is as you go through that, it's like, I didn't want that to happen. I've broken bones, and broken bones suck. There's nothing I want anything than that, but those things, it's like he learned a lesson. He learned a
Hmm.
valuable lesson there. And hopefully next time he gets back on the field, he now knows to zig instead of zag at that appropriate time. And we'll see. But that's also a part of life, right? You break bones, you skin knees, you get hurt, you get your feelings hurt, you get your ego bruised, you get all these things that happen. And
Hmm.
recognizing that, all you can do is, again, take that step back, slow
Yeah.
down, take that breath, and ask yourself again, is this where I want to be? Is this who I want to be? Is this how I want to be? It's the only thing that I know that really begins the process of change, because that's what I had to do when I was at my lowest, most broken down point, was ask myself that question. Is this the man I want to be? Is this the husband I want to be? Is this the person I want to be? Is this the father I want to be? Is this the brother, the son, all the different adjectives that make up me? Is this the way what I want to be? Is this how I want my legacy and my energy to be spread out into the world in a chaotic, just disjointed fashion? And
Man,
for
it's the right
me, it took me
questions.
years to get to, no, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to make it and focus it to get to help other people, because that is my core. And I know that's my core. And there's nothing that will change that for me.
That's awesome. Those are the right questions. So I hope everybody got all of those questions all in a row immediately. But
You can
it's
hit
a,
repeat several times. Don't worry.
keep just recording, going back. So, like, you're right. I'm going to give one more piece on that one because I think that is exactly where you start. But then I noticed no different than what do you want? It's a tough
Mm-hmm.
answer. People are like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
So here's a tool that I do, and tell me if you like this one. I call it build a chimera. And what
Okay.
I mean is like Frankenstein your own version. And so what happens is I say like who's a role model or who's a mentor that you can really say like that's somebody I'd like to emulate. And
Mm-hmm.
like I'd say like 99% of the time people are like I really don't have one.
Yeah.
There's nobody I could really say they really nailed it. And I'm like, but what I want you to do is look at all of these different people, the influences, the people who
Mm-hmm.
like I like this guy's work ethic, but I also
Mm-hmm.
like this guy's compassion. And I like this
Mm-hmm.
guy's the way that he speaks, and I like this guy the way that he shows up for people all the time, and I
Mm-hmm.
like this guy for being able to be like a handy and how he learns skills and
Mm-hmm.
how he stays focused. Like and you
Mm-hmm.
start chimeraing all these different
Yeah.
traits and these things, and you Frankenstein them all together with
Mm-hmm.
you. And
Yeah.
so, what's my version that I like of that trait? What's
Yes.
my version that I like of being like compassionate? What's my
Mm-hmm.
version of empathy? What's my version of hard work? What's my version of showing up for people? And then you put all of these together, and now you've created your own mentor slash target.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have a goal of
Yeah.
traits that are still you, but now I want to move forward to the best me. So
Yeah.
when you're doing stuff and you're like, oh, fuck you. And you're like,
Yeah.
do I really want to be that guy? Or does that not
Mm-hmm.
match up to the kind of compassion that the me
Mm-hmm.
with those traits would be like? It's like, that's not being my best version of me. So
Yeah.
then you're not comparing it to, unrealistic expectations like
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. Now
Yeah.
you're comparing it to like a realistic version of you that's
Mm-hmm.
improved authentically. Thoughts?
No, I mean, I think that I love that. I think figuring out like what like 10, 15, 20 traits are that that people most commonly want, or then the ones that you can you fill in right away. The ones you
Mm-hmm.
can't fill in, you fill in later along the way. And then that creates this roadmap of you becoming the person you want to be. And it's just like we talked about last time, is that's the basics of goal setting. That's the be do have process of goal setting. First, you figure out who you want to be. Once you know who you want to be, then you can figure out what you need to do to be that. And then once you have the be and the do, getting the have is a cakewalk. because
Right.
you're already being and doing, you'll have the stuff. Because then you're out there and you're putting the energy out there, you're putting the stuff out there, and then that brings people to you. That like attracts like. It is there. That happens.
Boom.
Mic drop. I'm out.
Take that with you guys. Take it with you. All right, Clint, you got to bounce soon?
No, I'm good. I still
You're good?
got another 20 minutes.
20 minutes. All right, cool. Yeah, I love that tool. I hope that people take that advice. Take what you've got to answer the questions, build your own chimera, make your own Frankenstein of your best you. Slow down and then ask yourself, is this really worth my time and energy? Now, this is tough because the awareness on that's hard, man. Why?
Yeah.
This is I think it was one thing I bring up often with this topic is I like listening to Les Brown. Les Brown's like, we're the busiest people in history,
Yeah.
but we
That
are
do
the
nothing.
least productive.
Yeah. The busiest people in history that do nothing.
We have been conditioned that we're always busy. Now, this gets into priorities. Slow down. What are your priorities? Now, here we are. If you look at people who are like, man, I don't know, I've been really busy today, really busy. I just didn't have time. I just didn't have any time. I couldn't have called you. I didn't have time. I didn't have time. And you're like, all right, that's probably true. Let me see your screen time.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, you got 3.5 hours of social media on here. You also were doing all this stuff and this stuff and this stuff. Looks like you watched 2 episodes of this and looks like you had this going on. It's like, didn't have any time, huh?
Yeah.
It's like, no, what you were doing is your priorities are what?
Totally messed up.
You know,
Totally
well,
backwards.
it depends. It depends.
Yeah.
This is where like I get into like good and bad, right and
Yep.
wrong. Well, is it messed up? It depends on what your goals are. Let's just use an easy one like health, for example.
Mm-hmm.
What if, let's say this, if I'm eating 6,000 calories a day, fast food, junk, cake, garbage, you know, you name it, sweets,
Mm-hmm.
candy, pop like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Am I doing good or bad?
Can your body handle it?
At least for right now it can.
Okay. Well, I mean, what is it doing for you? Is it giving you some kind of solace? Is it helping you process through some things? Are you using it as a coping mechanism? What's happening? Why is this going on? That's
It's
where my brain goes to. But then again, I'm a therapist. I can't help it. That's where my brain
no,
automatically
keep
goes.
going. Yeah, I'm like I do it because I love it, and it
Yeah.
makes me feel like I'm moving towards my goals.
Yeah. Okay. And what is your goal?
I want to be 600 pounds on those scooters.
Oh, okay. Well, then you know what? You're on your way. Keep it up. Good job.
I'm doing good.
Yeah. You're figuring it out. You
I'm
know.
doing good. Now I'm
That's
doing
right.
good because I want to
Yeah.
be one of the big guys on a motorcycle. Like
That's
that's
right.
what I want to be. I love that. And I
Yeah.
want to be that. And that makes
Yep.
me happy. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I want. And you're like, well, then, yeah, 6,000 calories and
Yeah.
eat as
Okay.
much junk as you can because
Yeah.
that's how you get that.
Yep.
Now, if I'm eating 6,000 calories, drinking soda, sugar, and going nuts, but like I want to be like fit and
Mm-hmm.
healthy and fast, and I'm trying to be like a sprinter, and I want to be
Mm-hmm.
quick, and I got like a you know Iron Man thing, or if I'm trying to do
Mm-hmm.
like one of those obstacle course like the Spartan runs or something.
Mm-hmm.
You like, is that good or bad?
That wouldn't work because it wouldn't meet your goal.
Right. So then in this case, it would be bad only
Yep.
because it goes against my goals.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
So are
this
you
is how
telling me
you
it's
can.
all about context? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Sure
You're
seems
telling
to
me it's
be.
all about context.
And this is why people want to judge everybody's journey, even though they
Exactly.
don't know their goals.
Yeah.
Now, the only time you can do that is if you can really say, let's measure it against what it is that you want. And if you
Mm-hmm.
want a healthy, happy relationship, yet you're doing stuff like judging, shaming,
Mm-hmm.
guilting, tearing your partner down, nagging, complaining, well, what kind of relationship do you want to have? Well, I want a healthy one. Well, you're doing unhealthy behavior to get a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
This is like you eating 6,000 calories and then wanting to be able to be fit and healthy. Maybe
Yep.
you should stop doing the junk food if you want a healthy relationship. So stop tearing your person down if you want to have something that's built up and beautiful.
Exactly. And that's the case, right? Is it's whenever you decide what you want your goals to be,
Mm-hmm.
having the people around you that recognize your goals and can support you in those goals, having your team, having the wind at your back, so to speak, is the way to get there the fastest. But most often, we've been trained and taught in society and culture that no, I need to do this myself because if I don't do this myself, other people are going to try and steal it from me. So I got to do this myself. And then once I have it, then I can bring other people along. But by the time you get there, you've realized that they're down here and you're up here because you've done all this work. And you're like, well, but if I bring them all the way up here and they don't do the same stuff, then they'll squander or whatever, right? It's like the intergenerational wealth stuff you hear all the time, right? Where, man, Rockefeller went and did this stuff and built all this stuff, and now you don't even know where his descendants are or what's going on with them because it's like 5 or 6 generations later. And yeah, they still got money, but nowhere near what they used to have. Yeah, they still got all this stuff, but nowhere near what they used to have because the educational process, the doing part, the being and the doing is what creates the ability to have the stuff and hold it long term. It always comes back to that piece, and you need that if you want to create the life that you want. Is you need to figure out, who do you want to be? If you don't know who you want to be, you can't own anything. If you can't own anything, you can't solve anything because you got to own it before you fix it.
So are you saying that it's highly plausible the reason people are struggling is because society isn't doing it exactly right for them personally?
Well, society isn't doing it exactly right for anybody personally because society doesn't do anything personally. Society is.
So then you shouldn't be trying to change yourself based on the judgments, shame, and opinions of others?
You know, I think that could be something that would be a much healthier way of trying to become a happier, whole human being.
Son of a
Because
bitch.
that's the thing. Because for me, especially, my story in this is the imposter syndrome piece. That for me was the part where I was judging myself constantly based on what I thought other people thought of me. And
Interesting
that
system.
held me back for years because I just kept believing that other people must think this way about me. But you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to actually talk to other people and find out what they actually thought about me. So it was all in my head. Amazing how that works, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird that assumptions are facts in our head.
That's right. And they're
I
the most real facts there are. They're the most real facts there are.
It's like you said it so loud in my head.
I know.
Yeah, it's funny when you say it, people do that. So what I would do is people would say a thing. I actually had that video, we just put it up, where I was asking like, what's the opinion if I say like, hey, why'd you put that there?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's all tone, it's all tone. And people think they're so clever because it's tone, but they don't assess like, what did you add when you heard the tone? What did you add to it? Like, oh, well, I added in that you're mad at me. I added in that you think I'm stupid. I added in that you think that I don't know where that goes. It's like, it's simply, if you remove your cadence, it's just a question. But we add in all of these things and we call it facts.
Well, and even when you don't use tone, even if I were to talk to you in a completely monotone, boring voice and keep my voice completely modulated like this, you're going to either do two things. You're going to either fall asleep or you're going to think that I am so bored that there's something going on with what you're presenting that you are feeling this way, because we can't help but flip everything inwards, because no matter how much we don't want to be, we are the star of our own show. Because we have this all have this director in our brain that tells us the way the thing is supposed to go. But the problem with this director is we don't share it with the other cast and crew. We don't share it with our wives, our husbands, our kids, our friends, our business partners. We don't share what the story is in our head of the way things are supposed to go. And then when things don't go the way we want them to, we're pissed off, we're angry, we're frustrated, we're hurt, we're all these things, because how dare you not go along with what I didn't tell you that we were going to go and do? Wait a minute, what? Wait a minute, huh? I'm confused.
I don't know. I don't know, Clint. This sounds shenanigans. I think that it's a little bit easier if we just go along with, I'm supposed to control everybody. I'm supposed to control everything. I control how people's perception goes of me. I control the way things are supposed to go. And if people don't do according to what I believe it should be, whether we've had a conversation about it or not, expect some sort of reaction, because they deserve it. Because it needs to be my way. It's the only way that makes sense. And it's common sense, Clint. Common sense that says they should be doing it my way. I don't understand how they don't understand that.
Where did you buy this common sense? I'm not quite sure where
Listen,
that
if you don't
is.
know, you must be living under a rock then, because it's common.
Hey, you don't talk bad about my rock.
Yeah. You rock, Clint.
But that's the piece, right? Is as you continue to go through this stuff and as you look at these pieces and parts of the world and of your place in it and what you want and what you hope and what you dream, you have to remember the only thing that is real is the stuff that's in your head.
Hmm.
Because someone somewhere decided that this is a cup.
Well, only in English is that a cup.
Exactly. Somewhere someone said that's a cup. But also, what is it for? Well, it's to drink some kind of liquid out of. Really? But what else could go in it? But that's the thing, right? It's this perception of stuff. It's all perception. It's all of us saying, I agree to the story that you and I have mutually discussed, or maybe not discussed, maybe society told us, and this is what it is. And so
Hence,
I agree
tr-
to it. Really? But
tr-
what about based on where you live? In what's did you grow up in a big town or in a small town? Are you in a city? Did you grow up in the South, the Midwest, the Northeast? Did you grow up in Canada? How about overseas? Were you a military brat? Did you live in 15 different countries? What's going on? So where's that
rich,
common sense
poor,
coming from?
gender, race,
Yeah,
start adding it all in there. What is it?
everything, right? Everything. It all becomes this thing. What it all comes back to is this: the
Hmm.
story we tell ourselves is our reality. So
Correct,
if you
Amar.
can slow down, take a breath, check your story, or as I like to say, you got to check your emotional math, because your emotional math usually adds up to be something negative, and that's because of biological survival. Because survival for human beings goes one way. This didn't work out. Bad stuff's going to happen. I'm going to die. That's what biological survival tells us.
It
And
goes
and
right to
everybody
death.
else is like, wait a minute, that escalated really fast,
It's a
and it
big jump.
does. Biological survival goes from bad stuff to death in about 2.6 seconds flat.
It's funny. It's like, well, if they say no, they're not able to go out on Friday.
Yep.
You're not gonna die. I'm like, I don't know,
Hmm.
man. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that rejection equals death.
Well, if you're thinking about high school, it kind of does.
Oh, it
Because in high
does.
school, you got to remember you're 400% jacked up on all these hormones. So for you in high school, if someone doesn't want to date you, yeah, you're going to feel like you're going to die. Does it mean you are? Well, probably not. But that's the thing is you feel like it because
Yeah.
all your hormones and everything is saying this is life or death because I was now ostracized from the tribe. Therefore, when you get kicked out of the tribe equals death.
Yeah, right.
That was the
So let's
de
say you make
facto
it
punishment forever.
past that death and you
Yeah,
survive that one just to get broken up with, and now I'm gonna die.
exactly.
Why'd you leave me?
Exactly. Like your teenage years is nothing but about 150 paper cut mini deaths until you finally emerge into early adulthood, where then you get fired for the first time and you find out that FICA takes all of your money out of your paychecks and you can barely survive on anything.
I love it. So high school is 150 paper cut deaths just so we can
Yep.
finally get to adulthood, which is 1 million paper cut deaths.
Yes, exactly. And you wonder why you feel like you just slid down a slide with razor blades into a pool of salt and lemonade.
Wait, there's a pool of salt and lemonade.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Well,
I'm
maybe
like,
it's margaritas. Depends on what you want.
that's what I was just thinking. I'm
At
like,
least you can enjoy yourself when you get
this
there,
sounds like,
bleeding and being in pain.
without the razor blades, it sounds like a cool pool. That's all I'm saying.
But yeah, but that's the fun stuff, right? Is as you go through this stuff and as you recognize these things, the key thing that I love most about my work and being around other people and talking to amazing people is that the absurdity of life is my favorite thing to discuss because it
Mhm.
is the most ridiculous thing ever. The fact that my job is to be, again, to be a professional secret keeper and advice giver. And I went to school to learn how to be a professional secret keeper and advice giver and all of these things. It never ceases to amaze me that I sit here and I basically reflect back to people all day and help them find their truth so that
Mhm.
they can move through the world in a healthier way. And
Yeah.
that is why I love this because that is what this is about. It's about everybody finding their own truth.
Mm-hmm.
All I can give you is nuggets that I hope will lead you along the way. But ultimately, just like you found yours and just like I've found mine, other people can find theirs if they decide to slow down and take the chance
Yeah.
that they can do it.
And I'd actually throw in this last piece of acceptance. When it comes to control, probably the fastest way to gain control is when you accept that you're not in control of it all.
Yep.
Just, it's not yours. They're not yours to control. Stop
Yep.
controlling everybody. Stop trying to be in charge of other people's emotions. Stop trying to say how everything should go and how it should be. You're shooting all over yourself.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, well, that is. And that got into like even like the 4 different styles of like belief system when it gets this. The victims, you know those ones. Everything's always happening to me, Clint.
Yeah, I
And
know.
then, all right, then you got the people who are like trying to turn it into a positive when it happens for me.
Yep.
Everything happened for me. It's like, you know what? I'm learning my lessons. And
Yep.
then you get to the next level where like you can just come to pure acceptance, presence in the present of like, well, things happened.
Yeah.
That happened. Okay. And then you
Yeah.
get to the last bar, which is like things are happening through me. And this is how I
Yeah.
can create.
And
And so
here's the thing is it always comes back to it just is.
it just is.
There's
Well,
nothing else that you can say. It just is.
this is the dangerous game though, because the correct answer is it just is. But if you do it incorrectly, denial can dress up as acceptance. And then you get
Oh,
stuck in your grief system by ignoring the pain from anger and from sadness, which creates bipolar disorder because you
yeah.
volcano. So don't
Yes.
get caught up in the answer is the solution because you still got to go through, but the answer ends up being it just is.
It
But you
just
still got to
is.
go through anger, depression,
Oh
bargaining
yeah.
still. Don't
Yeah.
stay in
You gotta go
denial.
you gotta go through all the stuff to break out of it. But when you get to just is, you're like, really? It just is?
Yeah.
This is what I've been struggling for. I feel a little bit cheated. But then you're like, oh, but no, wait, no. Wait, hold on. Maybe I'm not cheated.
Maybe I'm
Oh,
calmer. Maybe I'm
oh, wait.
happier.
It is just is.
Maybe I'm
Oh,
more likable.
yeah. It's that's the fun piece of it, right? Is getting to the other side of shit is the thing that once you get out of it and you look back and you're like, that was a whole lot of shit that I just walked through.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's one of the most important things that I do for a lot of people that I work with is I get them to turn around and go, look, you remember that's the way you used to be, the stuff
Yeah.
you used to do? Look over
Yeah.
your shoulder. Do you see all those footprints? Do you see all the things?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what you did today versus what you would have done 2 weeks ago? Today, you made the choice that made you feel good, whereas 2 weeks ago, this same situation would have sent you into a spiral.
Yeah.
You see? Celebrate the win, own the win. Because if you can own the failure, you have to own the success. And that's the thing that people have the hardest time doing, right? I can give you 10 things right now of that I don't like about myself. But if you ask me for 5 things that I like about myself, that would be a struggle. Even though I've been doing this work for 23 years and have done my own work for most of my life.
Interesting. What's the gap on that one? Because like I am curious. Like, does that mean like is it like a self-esteem thing or like what's the block on that one?
A piece of that is, it's the old story, right? It's the imposter syndrome. It's those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about that stuff is I've also recognized that it doesn't really matter how many I give myself, as long as I can give myself one, which is I know who I am and I love myself. And that's it. Everything else doesn't matter. I can talk about all the negative stuff where I'm too loud. I get hot headed. I don't listen sometimes. Sometimes I talk more than I should. All the different things, right? I
Well,
can
most of
think
those
about
ones
that.
were judgments and not even like traits. Like only one of those was like the trait. You know, I get
Yeah.
hot-headed sometimes, or even that's still maybe a judgment.
Yeah.
So like, is it just the judgments that you still cast on yourself for shame then? And that's
Oh,
why
of
it's hard
course.
to be able to have like the pride and acceptance of how good you are.
Yeah. And it
Interesting.
is, and it can be, but that's also my stuff that I'm still working on. That's still
Yeah.
my shadow, my growing edge is still recognizing those stories that I tell myself and call bullshit on it. And I have to
Yeah.
call bullshit on myself consistently because those stories have been ingrained in me for my whole life. And so they still come up because the thing I got to remember is this is just a computer that's been wired by all the stories, and
Mm-hmm.
those stories are always in there. And if one misfire happens and I think about things in a certain way, it's easy to drop down that pathway because
Sure.
that pathway has been trod 100,000 times versus these new ones have been trod 50,000 times. So which
Fair
way
enough.
would you go?
Your default.
100,000 or 50,000?
Yeah, it's
And
a
so it's
default
those
program.
things.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
your
And it's
default, your
constantly
autopilot.
going, no. It's constantly going, no. It's constantly saying, no, I'm not going to go that way. Oh, there's a bridge out? Sure, I'm going to keep accelerating and drive towards that. No, I'm not going to do that. And that's
Right.
the lesson that I've learned throughout the course of my healing is I'm not done yet. And
For
I'm
sure.
not ready to be done yet because I love the fact that I still have to go through it because it allows me to keep growing, keep changing, keep recognizing, keep understanding. Because if I ever run out of stuff to understand about myself, that scares the crap out of me because that's
Sure.
an impossibility because I keep changing every day.
I'm with you on the growth part. I actually I'm assessing even in myself while I'm listening to you. I'm like, the way that you have a shame stack that's built in there from like your
Mm-hmm.
previous default program,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think I have a shame stack like that. Like, I don't think, because if you like say 10 negative things about yourself, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I'm that hard on myself with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's just myself. I'm not trying to be like arrogant. I'm like, I'm really trying
No.
to go like, well, how would I fucking,
Well,
because even
and
the
here's the
things
thing,
that
and I'm
aren't
not
really,
saying, that for you. I'm saying that for me.
no, for sure. No, I'm trying to see if I can relate. That's all. I'm just looking
Yeah.
to like your system for sure. Like you're like, my default was I beat the shit out of myself. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm like, fair enough. I think that my default was more projecting onto others, but I'm trying to think of how much that I put on myself. Not
Mm-hmm.
to say that I don't have like I'm perfect on stuff because my heart side is where most of my fear and my damage is, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't shame there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not shaming, and I'm trying to think of any other areas. I'm trying to go like you're too much this, you're too this, you're not good enough this, you're not there. Is versus like, well, that's just where I grow, not like this is where you're not good enough. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I do it that way. Like I'm really trying to like not trying to scoot around it. I really am.
No,
Like
no, I get it. No,
maybe if you were to challenge me on it to see if you can find where the piece is, I'd be open to
oh,
like, hmm,
but it always comes down to is like that right there. That is the core difference between the two of us. The
mm-hmm,
way I was constructed through my experiences in my life constructed that piece in me. The way what you went through in your life didn't put that construct in you. It
right,
put a different kind of construct in you. And that's one of the reasons why I love psychology because
mm-hmm,
you can have two people, I can have two people sitting in front of me that have almost similar, like notice similar, not the same, but similar things happen to them and they turn out 100% different because
right,
it's all how this and the story and other people and the things in your life that pull all this stuff together that melds and creates the story. And for that is it's just my story was one of bullying and imposter syndrome and those things. And so that's why I'm hard on myself is because that's the piece. But for you, it wasn't being bullied or having imposter syndrome. It was all these other things that shifted the way you looked at you. Instead, you projected it outward. So some people go in, some people go out. Neither one's right, neither one's wrong. It's just the way we get built through the stories and through the things that happen in our life. And all you can do is say, well, that part doesn't really apply to me. Okay, that's great. Well, what part of it does resonate with you?
mm-hmm.
Because that's the part that matters. What made you think about it from that perspective? How did that change the way you looked at you in that moment? Because that's okay. Because it doesn't mean, because what I say is not going to be 100% you, and what you say is not going to be 100% me. We can get close, but we can never hit spot on.
Well, even 90% is still an A, Clint.
That's right. That's right.
Man, it's always awesome. If we could say anything, guys, slow down. Slow down. In
Yeah.
fact, if you're going to go back in this episode, you may want to slow it down because we go
Do
fast.
point eight. Just do point eight.
Yeah,
So we're
point.
talking really, really slowly.
Yeah, right.
Just
Listen,
do that.
point eight for you and I is regular conversation for everyone else. So, but I know you got to bounce. Thank you so
Yep.
much for hanging with me, brother. This was awesome. I'm always love these conversations, and this is also very cool. If people are listening to this, if you went through and tried to catch each like nugget of information that's helpful, you got 10 pages by the end of this hour conversation. So, like, this is always fun, man. I appreciate you jumping
Yeah.
on here and being able to do more stuff together, man.
Hey, man, I look forward to working with you. Let's keep doing this. I love these conversations. You always give me new things to think about and you give me stuff to steal. So thanks, man.
I'm gonna go get an egg right now.
All right, do that. All right.
Thanks, Clint. I'll see you later,
Bye,
bud.
guys.